Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to continue on with the appointment API that we're creating. This episode is all going to be about seeding data. So with seeding data, the main reason I want to show this is so that we have some data to already work with in our database. Also, this helps with testing as well. So by the end of this video, we should have data for our users, for types of appointments, for appointments, and for user appointments. So let's get started. It's at this point I'm just showing you the models that we're going to be using. So for each model, that's going to be how we're going to access our database so that we're able to send data to our database. So right now I'm writing a command to make a user model. And also I'm going to make the other models as well. Remember, we're doing appointments, we're doing type, and then we're doing user appointments. So the idea here is we have a table of users, we have a table of appointments, we have a table of types of appointments, and this is going to be a distinct list, which I'll show you how I did that later on. And then we're going to have a table of user appointments. So every user has multiple appointments. So that's kind of how we're setting this up now. So after we create our models, we're going to then create a factory. This factory is what we're going to use in order to make our database have data in it. So we're going to create some users in the factory, and I'll show you how we do that. I'm only going to use the model factory. Sometimes you'll see it where people have like a user factory and an appointment factory, and I went that route, and then I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So everything's going to be in this one model factory file for all of our tables. Just because this is a very simple API, so I wanted to show y'all kind of just simply how you can do it if you're just trying to create a smaller project. So with the factories, we have to define the names on the table. So if you have not already, go back and watch the last episode, or the first episode rather, where I talk about the database, and we set up our databases and we had the fields. So all of this that I'm adding here is basically from the taking the information we used from the last episode, and we're just utilizing that information now. So each user has a name, email, phone number, and a date of birth here, and we're just seeding that information in. So we're basically, what that is we're just creating fake data to have in our database so that we have something to work with when we start building out the API. So for our date of birth, what I'm doing here is I don't want just any date of birth. As you can see, I'm looking up how to do start date, start and end dates for date between, because I only want a specific specific years of birth, dates of birth. As you could imagine, I don't want to have this office see a 1-month-old. They don't have teeth, so what do they need a dentist for? I'm also looking up time zones. Date between method takes in a time zone. Alright, so I said I have appointments for people that are like 80 years old to 2 years old. So that's what that is. So basically the first number minus 80 is like 80 years ago. And then the second value minus 2 is 2 years ago. And then I have the time zone there. I'm going back to my database seeder file because this is where I'm going to end up calling the model factory to create a specific amount of users. In this instance, it's users. So I'm calling the factory, and you see I use the user, that's the user model class, and I'm saying create 50 users. You'll notice Laravel is pretty readable, so. So now I am just going to finish creating the information. I'm moving on to the types. As I said, it's a specific amount of a specific type of appointment that I want to have. So I've already, as you could see in my note there, I've already wrote out what I was going to do. So I basically have an array of types, and I'm looping over each type, and I'm inserting it into the database. So that's basically what that is. And I'm just, if you recall, the types table only has a name on it and an ID, and a created at and updated at date. So that is what I have filled in here. The next thing is going to be the appointment, and this does not exist yet. So, oh yes, it does. I don't need that app/appointment. This is going to create 50 appointments. And then I'm also doing user appointment. Now I'm going to add the calls to my models that I created, so that instead of saying app/appointment class, I could just say appointment class, or type class, or user class. And just gonna go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and remove the app from each one of those because we have defined it above, so we don't need to have it there now. And this will go straight to app/appointment. Going back to the model factory. And at this point, we have users, we have our types that we're going to do for the factories. Each time you define a factory, it's almost like defining, you could think of it as defining data for a table. Our appointment table has a type ID which references a type on the table. So a type on the types table. So basically what I've said there is I said, okay, give me a random number between the first ID of the first type ID and the entire count of type IDs. And I forgot my return, so I'm gonna go ahead and add that, and I'm gonna move that line up. Otherwise it won't know what to do with this information, and it won't return anything, and it won't have any data. And again, here I'm just defining those models, so I could just use type or appointment. This one we have date of appointment, and as you can imagine, we want future appointments. I was gonna have past appointments in here. I may go back and change this to have past appointment. That time zone's not right. I did Chicago, but it ended up not being Chicago. I change it later. This is completed as a Boolean, and I just defaulted it to false. The next field is canceled, and then the final field is also a Boolean field. And again, I've just defaulted these all to the same because they're future appointments. So I don't know if I've quite explained the no-show column, but I thought it would be nice to know if somebody had an appointment, but then they didn't show up to the appointment. So I was thinking, oh, let's just do no-show, because they didn't cancel. They didn't call and cancel, but they did decide that they weren't going to be there. So let's keep track of that. In a real business, you would want to know how many people had appointments but did not show up to those appointments. You might pull a report, how many people each year or for the last 2 years had appointments but did not show up to them. How many people canceled those appointments? How many people completed an appointment? What did they have done on that appointment? So it becomes important later on when you start compiling data and you have people that are coming to appointments and such. The last one that we're doing here, we're almost done, is the user appointment. This one's pretty easy because again, it's just a user and it's an appointment ID. So it's a user ID and an appointment ID, and I just literally do the same thing as I did the types. Grab the first user ID and grab the count of types. Any changes I make, of course, are going to be in the GitHub repo. Right now, I'm seeing there's some things happening. I'm like, what's happening? I'm like, oh, I spelled random. That's not right. And looking at everything, making sure it's fine. And I have an error. This is when I realized that the time zone is not right. And I'm like, oh man. So now you see the data. Just the ones that I've created. So this is it. This is how you see data into your database. So hopefully you've learned something from this. If you have any comments, suggestions, any ways to maybe you've tried a different route that you want to share, feel free to leave it below. Thank you all for watching. Next video we're going to work on the API side of this, and I'll see you there.